initialized. This call is now being recorded.
There you go. Now, we all know we're being recorded, so this is good, and this means you're going to be famous, Connie. I think you're already famous, aren't you?
Well, maybe.
I think you're another go-getter. So many of your Rosies are go-getters. Well, let's introduce each other. Let me have Michael Kindred introduce himself. Michael, why don't you start, and then we'll have Tish and then Connie.
Well, I'm Mike Kindred, and I live right outside Lexington, Kentucky, in Winchester, and I'm a retired vocational school principal. And Connie, I got to see you on CBS Sunday morning. My dad is still alive. Matter of fact, I just got back from the VA with him, but we have gone over to Lexington on numerous occasions to see the other B-29 when they fly it in there. And so I was real excited to not only find out that they've restored another one, but to find out that you actually worked on it. You're like the one person I've been wanting to interview.
It doesn't mean he doesn't want to interview anybody else. It just means you're top of the line, right? Am I hearing that right, Michael?
That's exactly right. You've been at the top of the list.
Top of the list. He's been on me for a while, and we've been distracted with numerous different kinds of projects here. But the other thing I want to say about Michael is he called us, I'm not sure, I think it's 4 years ago, and about this time of year, as principal of a VOTEC school near Lexington, and he wanted to attract women into VOTEC training. And we immediately started connecting, and I saw his interest not only in the Rosies, but, in World War II, because his father, who was still living, was World War II veteran. But also, Michael is really interested in how to use the Rosies to encourage young people, especially young women, but young people to go into vocations that they never expected to go into, or occupations. So he went with us to Washington a year ago when one of our Rosies in Morgantown, West Virginia, spoke to the National Association of Manufacturing. So we look at this as not just history, but we look at it as future. So then, Tish, why don't you introduce yourself? Do you go by Trish or Tish?
Tish, T-I-S-H, is fine.
Yeah, okay. Introduce yourself, and you're Connie's daughter, right?
Right. She has 3 boys and myself, and then we have an adopted foster child that she took in. So there's 4 boys, and they're all 10, 11, 12, and 13 years older than I am. So I'm the baby of the family and the only girl.
You're the baby and the other girl. Does that mean they ganged up on you?
Sometimes, that's right.
I think they must have.
Yeah, they can share.
I wouldn't want 4 older brothers, I tell you. I don't see how you keep your confidence.
No, they're fine.
And what do you do now? You work for a school, am I right?
Right. I am president of a Catholic high school here in Wichita, Kansas, and I've been here 35 years, and I started as a business teacher, and then assistant principal, and then principal, and then then I was president principal, and now I'm president and I have a principal. So I'm in the administration rank, so kind of like he is here a little bit, but in a different 9 through 12 Catholic co-ed school.
9 through 12.
So being president, is that like being the superintendent?
Well, I have a superintendent, too. So what my principal does the day-to-day operations, and my main job is development, alumni relations, but I also do maintenance and some HR stuff, and the majority of my job is supposed to be raising money and finance a little bit. So it's a little awkward. We're learning. But, a lot of the schools on the East and West Coast have that model. And then we adopted it, and we've sort of re-adopted. And the bad thing, I was principal here for, 14 years? And that was really hard for people to separate me in the president role a little bit. So, we have a lot of alumni that their kids are here now and things. So, but it's working out okay. I'm adjusting to it. So
good.
Yeah. Well, that's because you're a nonprofit, and we know about that, Michael, don't we?
Yes.
The fundraising is the least fun thing to do, and in some ways, there's nothing more important than fundraising. I will say that, because the more funds you raise, the more work you can do, right, or whatever. Yeah. So Michael is going to conduct the interview, and we'll sit back, and any time that you have a question to ask Tish, just interrupt, and it flows better that way. And Michael, I do need to tell you that Tish needs to be off the line in exactly an hour or maybe 55 minutes.
Well,
sometimes I get long-winded, so
that's okay. And I did. I told them I've got another administrator covering in case we go longer. So
okay. Oh, that's good. That's great. All right.
And the only thing, Mike, you guys and Ann tell you that sometimes if Mom doesn't understand, she has hearing aids. She tries to hear, but if she doesn't, I might repeat the question for her.
Oh, that's no
fine.
problem.
My dad is the same situation.
Okay.
Yeah. Not to worry, because actually one of the reasons we started doing the teleconferences is, believe it or not, we get better interviews than we do with them face-to-face, partly because the telephone with somebody there with the Rosie seems to work out. They seem to hear better, and we hear them better than if we're just in a room with a lot of ambient noise and all that. Anyway, ready, set, go, Ron, or Michael. Sorry about that.
Okay. Well, let's start off, Miss Connie, with just your name, place of birth, your date of birth, and all the basic essentials.
Okay. My name is Connie Palaczio, and of course my Spanish name is Consuelo, but I go by Connie. And
you want her to spell her last name?
I think we have it, but let's make sure, because I do need to know that. It's Palacioz.
Correct.
Is that correct? Oh, my gosh. And pronounce it for us, Connie.
Palaczio.
I can't do that.
Yes.
Was that your maiden name or your...
No, my maiden name is Cuellar. Cuellar.
Okay.
Okay, your date of birth?
My date of birth is January the 16th of 1925.
And place?
And I was born in Peabody, Kansas. And
your birth name? On your birth certificate, is it Consuelo?
In my birth certificate. Yeah, it's Consuelo, but in my passport it's Connie.
Yeah, we just have that problem right now. We're kind of doing some work moving her to an apartment, and her passport says Connie Palaczio, but her birth certificate says Consuelo. So we're having some legal issues there, but we're going to try to get it worked out, okay? And the name of your last public school?
Well, I went to Newton High School.
Okay, that was the high school, but you also... You didn't go to Emporia at all, did you?
No.
No? Okay, so...
Well, my husband did.
Okay, so high school education, Newton High School, and Newton, Kansas was her last high school. And then... Okay, go ahead, Mike.
I was going back up. What about... Let me ask about your parents real quick.
Your parents?
Did they immigrate here, and what did they do?
My dad's name was Jose Cuellar, and my mother was Guadalupe and Lupercio.
Lupercio was her maiden name.
And then Cuellar when she married my dad.
And tell him, he wants to know where they were born in Mexico, right?
Yes.
Tell him that story. He wants to know.
My mother was born in Guadalajara, in a little town close to Guadalajara. They call it El Valle de Guadalupe, in Jalisco, in Mexico. And my dad was born in Saltillo, in Nuevo León, in Monterrey, Mexico.
And they came over to the United States when?
Well, my dad was 7 years old, and
and your mom went. How old was she when she came over?
She was 6.
6. And they went. Where did they?
Well, my dad. They went and they settled in Waco, Texas.
Okay.
And my dad, when they were in Waco, they had their neighbors were. They had some children. They were Mexicans, and my dad played with them, and he learned English when he played with them. So my dad could speak fluently English, but he could not read or write. And yes.
And Grandma, where did she, when she came from Mexico, the United States, where did she come to? To Peabody?
Yeah. She came. Well, they came to Wichita, and then they went to Peabody.
Is that where she lived?
No.
Oh, no.
No, she lived in Newton.
Oh, she lived in Newton. Okay. And then they met. When did they meet? They met in Wichita?
In Newton. My dad was in Wichita.
He moved from Waco, Texas to Wichita?
And then my uncle, his brother, he had a bakery there in Wichita. So they stayed in Wichita there for my dad stayed there until he got married. Then they moved to Newton when he went to work for the railroad.
Okay. He met Grandma where? In Newton?
In Newton,
Okay. We're in Wichita now, but Newton's her hometown.
Okay.
Okay.
And did you have any brothers and sisters?
Yes. I had 2 sisters and 2 brothers. And both my sisters, they went to Newton High like I did, and then they went to nursing school. They became nurses. And my brothers, they went to Newton High. And Jay, he was I was older than him. He was the next one after me. And he quit school during World War II, and he joined the Navy. So
okay.
He didn't graduate.
So he went in the Navy, and then Uncle Russ, did he graduate from high school?
Yes, he graduated, and he didn't go he went to the National Guards.
Okay.
He was in the National Guard.
And then he opened his own business?
Yeah, my brother opened, he did repair sewing machines for Singer Sewing Center. He had that in Newton, and he used to work on sewing machines, and he was the Singer Sewing dealer there in Newton.
So her oldest sister, we called her Lala. Her name was Eduarda. She was a nurse, and she lived in New Mexico, and she died
in 1967
of a stroke.
She had an aneurysm.
Yeah. And
she used to work as a nurse in a veterans hospital in Albuquerque. So when she had this aneurysm, she went to live in Las Vegas, where they have the veterans hospital there, and she spent there 9 years, and she could not talk or she was paralyzed completely. So
and then there was Lala, and then you,
and then Jay,
is the one that was in the Navy, and he's deceased now.
And Izzy, my sister's still living,
and she was the other nurse. And then Uncle Russ, the baby, and he died several years ago, and he's the one that had the Singer sewing machine shop.
And then my sister is still living, and she lives in Norfolk, Virginia.
Right.
And her husband was in the service, so that's why she moved over there to Virginia.
So I guess one thing about the family a little bit, Michael, that it's interesting is her sisters. They were pretty independent. Mom was domineered by my grandma pretty much, and as she goes through some of these questions, she'll kind of share that a little bit. But her sisters were pretty independent women. They didn't do what Mom always said. My grandma said.
Yeah.
Mom was more obedient and submissive, I should say. That's why I tease her now about being stubborn. Sometimes I say, you're too stubborn now, but I'm glad to see that part of her because all of her life she's been domineered by people.
Yeah, I was domineered by my mother and then by my husband.
So, but she'll probably get some of.
Let's go this route. Once you graduated high school, when did the war break out?
Well, I graduated. The war broke out in 1941, I think. That was World War II. 41? Yeah.
When you were in
December 7th, yeah.
Okay, 41. And you graduated in
43.
In May of 43. So tell him what you were doing then.
You were still in high school.
Yeah, you were in high school.
Yeah, I went to high school, and then after high school, I was working in a laundry there in Newton, and Hutchinson, Kansas, which is 36 miles from Newton. They had a naval base there, but they used to bring the white naval sailor uniforms, and I used to press those sailor uniforms, and I was only making 25 cents an hour. And then in 1943, when I graduated, then I heard that Boeing, they needed some workers, women especially, because most of the boys were at war. So I went to the unemployment and asked them if they needed, that I needed to know about the job, and they said, oh yes, we could sure use you. And so they, I quit the laundry, and then I went to a school. Well, I came here to Wichita from Newton. There used to be a bus that would bring employees from Newton to work at the Boeing plant, and so I used to come on that bus, and they would drop me here in Wichita at the Orpheum Theater, and then I would walk about 2 blocks to the Broadview Hotel. And right next to the Broadview Hotel, they had a little building that there were some instructors that were teaching you how to rivet and drill. And so when I went to the school, they said, they need riveters. I said, well, I'll try riveting. So I was in that school for 2 weeks. And then my instructor said that she thought I could rivet and I could go to the plant. So I was sent to the plant.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
When were you sent to the plant? Like 3 weeks after your school?
Yeah, after 1943.
Okay.
So how
Connie,
far was it?
tell me, excuse me, Michael, tell me again where you were trained. The bus left you off at the Orpheum Theater, and then you went, where were you trained? What was the name of the place that you were trained? It was on Waco next to the Broadview Hotel?
Yeah, it was just a building, and it said that it was, they were just training people to...
Was it called the Boeing Training Center?
No, it didn't have no Boeing training. It was just a school. They call it the Riveting and Drilling School.
Riveting and Drilling School. It's next to the hotel that's called the Drury Hotel. Now, it used to be the Broadview. The Orpheum Theater's where the bus dropped you off.
Yes.
And then that's on Broadway, and I don't know, it's a famous place here. It's a theater they've renovated, but she would walk from there to Waco Street, which would be, about half a mile maybe?
No, it was about 3 blocks.
Oh, she says 3 blocks. I think it's more, but so she would walk, the bus would drop her off there and walk there to school, and then the bus would pick you up in the evening?
Yeah.
Okay. And so after 3 weeks, then that's when you went to Boeing?
Yeah, I went to Boeing.
Okay.
So how long a bus ride was it from Newton to Wichita?
How long was the bus ride?
Well, it would take us about 45 minutes.
Probably, would they stop and pick people up?
Yeah, because we used to pick up people on the way in Newton.
Okay.
So 45 minutes or so?
Yeah, uh-huh.
Now,
one thing,
go ahead. Is the Boeing plant still there, or is it gone?
Yeah, it's Spirit.
It's called Spirit now.
They have part of Boeing, too.
If you look, I told Ann, if you go to the Doc's Friends website, DOC''S Friends, there is a video, I think it was a little over a year ago, where they took Mom back to the actual center, the plant where she worked. And it was covered here by the news pretty heavily. They followed all after. Okay, so they took her back there, and she's actually received 3 riveting guns from them at different points, at different ceremonies and things. And she says they're a lot lighter than what they used to be.
Oh yeah, ours were heavier.
But so they took her back to the plant. She says it looks familiar in some spots, but
not
she said it's changed a lot.
Because we had departments in those days. There were departments, one on each side, and I was assigned to Department 230, and all I did was rivet the nose section of the B-29. So, and we built 1,645. 45 or 44? 44, I think.
I think it's 1,644 is what they tell us that she actually built.
Is that right?
Now, there's some stories a little bit here. I want to tell them about...
first day?
Jerry? I guess you could tell them about what happened the first, and we can go back a little bit.
The first day I went to Boeing, they told me that they didn't have a bucker, because I need a bucker to when you rivet. And they said they didn't have a bucker, so the first day I was there, I was taking rivets I would go to the rivet cage and get the size of rivets that the workers wanted, and then I would bring them to the workers. That was my first day. Then on the second day, my lead man said that they did have a bucker, but that nobody wanted to work with her. So I asked him why, and they said because she was black. So nobody wanted to work with her. So I told him, I don't care. I don't mind working with her. I came here to rivet. So they brought Jerry. They had her cleaning bathrooms. And then she came, and she was really a good bucker. If it hadn't been for her, I couldn't have done the riveting that I did on the B-29. And now that the B-29 is flowing, there was only 7 rivets missing because it was in the desert for 42 years, and they used it for target practice, but they never touched the pilot section. The windows were broken and all that, but anyway, all the rivets that are in the B-29 dock are my original ones that I put in when I was 18. Only 7 were missing, and we replaced those.
Is that something else? Honestly,
I'm pretty proud of that.
I can imagine
that statistic, because they were surprised when they pulled it out, and so that's how Mom got to work on the B-29 restoration project. Was that when she read about it in the paper, I told her it was in the Wichita Eagle in the year, it was around 2000. That summer, they had an article that they were going to restore the B-29, and they were looking for volunteers. And that's when we learned that Mom had been a Rosie the Riveter. We knew she worked at Boeing, but we didn't know what she did till then.
And, that's extremely common, Tish, that I would say 3/4 of the interviews we do with the children present, the children are always surprised. They say,
really?
They know in general maybe, but sometimes they don't even know, and they say, "Mom, why didn't you tell me?" And they will very often say, "Well, I tried to, but you didn't listen."
Might have been with. So her goal was. My brothers were upset with us, with me, that I even mentioned this to Mom, because they said back then, how? Well, you see, you're 93 now, so 2000. How many years ago? That's 18 years. So they said she's too old to be driving back and forth to Spirit to work and do this. But she wanted to find Jerry, this bucker.
Mm-hmm.
That's the black lady, right?
Right.
I was hoping that she would come and help restore it.
But we never found her. They did, a general AP. The Eagle did an AP article trying to find her, and Mom thinks that she passed away because she said she quit writing you.
After we were laid off in 1945, when the war was over, she went to Denver, and we corresponded for about 4 years. And then soon her letters start coming back to me, and I have never heard from her since then.
What was her last name, Connie?
It was Warden, Worden.
Warden. And is it Gerry like Geraldine or J?
Do you think it's Gerry or J?
Well, I think it's probably, I always thought it was Gerry.
Gerry? One R?
No, yeah, Jerry.
Gerry is what you think.
Now, was that her married name or was that her maiden name?
She wasn't married.
She was not. So she might have gotten married, and maybe she's still there somewhere and by a different name.
Could be, but I don't know. She probably would be 93 like I am now.
Yeah, honestly. Well, I wish we could find her.
Back then, and Mom didn't tell you, in high school in our town that we grew up in, Mom was kind of faced with that through her high school. But Mom was always determined, I think, from her stories that, but there was a lot of discrimination in her class and things. But Mom you were always a fighter, kind of.
Oh, yeah. Well, there was a teacher, Mom Macbeth. She taught English, and she told me, "Don't give up, Connie. Keep on." And she said, "I can't help you or anything," because she was afraid they might fire her. But she gave me, said, "Stay in there. You got to get your diploma." So I stayed and took all the discrimination. They had a Mexican boy like me in my class. His name was Manuel Martinez, and he was dating Margie Herring, and she wasn't Mexican. She was white, and her folks, one time when they were cleaning her room, when they turned the mattress, they found out some letters that her and Manuel were writing. They found out that she was dating this Mexican boy. Boy, they went to the school and told the principal, and they're dating their daughter to be dating the Mexican. And then they took me to the office, and they wanted me to take Manuel away from her, and I wouldn't do it.
That's quite a story. That's a movie, I think. And what was it was Manuel Martinez, and then what was Margie's name?
Margie Harding.
Harding.
Harding. And
Harding.
And I tell you, they would, if I would hand in my test papers, they would call me to the office and said, I didn't, "Where's your paper?" I handed in and they would make me take the test over because I didn't take Manuel away from Manuel.
The teachers would lose the test that she took, or they would say she didn't do them, and things like that.
Oh yeah, I went through that, and then Manuel finally quit. He quit school. He said, "I'm quitting because you're suffering." Because I said, "Manuel, don't quit. You got to get your diploma. He said, no, I'm leaving. And so he quit school. And then after he left, well, that didn't bother me anymore. But Margie and him got married later.
They got married, and they both they are deceased now. And I took Mom. I missed Daniel's funeral, but his wife, Marjorie's, when she died, I saw that in the paper. So I took Mom to the funeral, and of course we didn't know the kids, and they wanted to know why we were there. So I ended up speaking at the funeral, telling them about their mom and dad, how they loved each other. And
oh my gosh!
Dad quit school for their mom, and it turned out to be it was a small service, not very many people there, but I'll tell you, for the kids, they were just in tears, and they just hugged Mom because it was a piece of history that they didn't know.
Yes.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
You know, so I was telling them, because some of them are they're, half and half a little bit I'm married to a Swedish or Danish guy, I should say, not Swedish, Danish, and like you told me with my name. But I was telling them, how they should be proud of their mom and dad, how you really love each other. And if you do things right, things can work out. But that's always something we remember about Mom, and kind of her story with Jerry and the B-29 a little bit, that is kind of special,
That is.
That's an incredible story. I have to tell you all, you won't understand this, but you're talking about funeral. And I went to a funeral yesterday that was a very small funeral, and it was very, very meaningful to me. And just now, at this moment, the nephew of a fellow who died, who was very close to me and was on our board, has just walked in, and he's handed me a bluebird that was in Ron's home, that fellow who died, and the bluebird means hope. So for whatever it's worth, it seems like that must have happened at the same moment you told me about the funeral. That's interesting.
That's neat. Yeah,
it's very interesting. It's a very interesting project. So many things come together.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you a question. You're talking about discrimination and things. Some of the women, we interviewed one the other day, and they used, and again, politically correct, I know, but they used a lot of dwarfs or small people or whatever to build the planes. Did they use any small people on the building of the B-29s?
Did they use any small people building the B-29, or?
Well, what he means, Connie, is dwarfs. Like we have found that in Akron, Ohio, there were midgets or dwarfs who worked on some of those planes that were similar to the B-29.
To get inside.
Yeah, well, I used to get in those small places because I was small. I never was too tall.
She's like 4'9" or 4'8" and a half now.
4'7" and
4'7" now.
I was 5 feet then, and I only weighed 103.
Wow!
And I was small, so I would crawl in those places where they needed the small people, and I would help rivet the little sections there.
And she did that even now when the new plane, when they restored it, because she's the smallest one, and sometimes they let her rivet. You put a little plate inside there and little things, and she said, I don't know anything like all the engineers and that, but I'm little, so they tell me what to do, and I try to do it. But did you have any midgets or dwarfs working there that you knew of or anything?
Any what?
Any midgets or dwarfs, small people?
No.
No?
There were some in the plant.
Oh, in the plant there were some.
but in my department we didn't have any.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you realize how technically advanced the B-29 was compared to the other planes?
Did you realize how technically advanced the B-29 was compared to other planes at that time?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
it was. Well, see, the when I got to the plane the first day that I didn't really, but the B-17 was taken out of the assembly line, and we started on the first B-29.
Okay.
In 1943. Uh-huh.
And it was the first pressurized plane.
Yes, the first pressure. Yeah,
and you knew that then, or did you understand that back then?
Well, not like I do now. I think I've learned more about the plane since I restored it.
So,
yes.
Let's talk about the Enola Gay. Was that plane?
Oh yeah, Tibbetts. He came to Wichita to the plane, and we saw him. I got to talk to him.
Really?
Yeah.
Now wait, I'm getting confused. Are you talking about the pilot or?
He was
Tibbetts is the one that flew the Enola Gay.
The one that flew atomic bomb, and he named his plane Enola Gay of his mother, from his mother's name.
Oh, I never knew
you
that.
met pilot?
Oh yeah, Tibbetts. He came to Wichita. Here to Wichita. I'm in Wichita now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was here, and he had a book that he wrote, and he was selling it about the books. Yeah, he was a real nice guy, very friendly, and he told us about his mission, and he told us that he named his plane after his mother. That's how I know. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I didn't know the pilots. I didn't know that the pilots named the planes. Was that common?
Did the pilots name the planes back then?
Yeah, they named whatever they want. Like I know he named his over his mother. And then the crew that flew our B-2, they named it after the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs,
That's why they called it
Doc.
Okay.
And
I'm
sorry, they called it. The Memphis Belle was named, the pilot was from Memphis, and he had a girlfriend. But I think it was named the Memphis Belle after her.
Oh, Memphis Belle.
That's where his girlfriend was from, I think.
Oh, really? Honestly, really. Now, I missed a little bit of something there. You said that, tell us about the crew again. What did you say? The crew was a name for the Seven Dwarfs? What was that?
The current crew named Doc, the plane Doc, or who did Tony do that?
No, he named it the ones that flew it during the war.
Named it the Doc after one of the Seven Dwarfs.
Oh my goodness!
But now, did that plane didn't see any combat missions, though, correct?
Did that plane see any combat missions? Do you know?
I don't know really.
Tony Mazzolini. And that would be another interview that you should probably do.
Okay.
Tony Mazzolini is the owner of the plane, and it was the one that pulled the plane out of the desert.
Oh, really?
And he lives in Cleveland, Ohio.
I have his phone number, and I could call him and then tell him I'll give it to you.
That would be so super. For one thing, I've been talking to Michael. Here I am in a remote area. West Virginia is pretty rural. But we're looking for a city that I can do more work in because I don't find my resources here. And we're thinking about going to Cincinnati, Ohio, to get a lot more, I guess I would say, support group. And that Ohio was very, very active. So if he's in Cleveland, that would be really super. I'd like to do some work in Ohio. We also want to do more work in Kansas, of course. So we can talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, he will tell you the history and what the red tape that he went through with the government and everything. Pull that plane out of China Lake in California. And, he fought. And it would be good to do it. He's deteriorated in health. Even from a year ago, we were in Wisconsin at Oshkosh, but this year he couldn't make it. He's had some back issues. But I think his mind is still there. And I could call him and tell him that what we've done. But that would be a very good interview. And then if you combine it with the B29, the story, and then they're opening the hangar where they're going to store Doc permanently. Is it going to be in October or November?
I think it's at the end of October.
They're finishing. That's going to be the permanent home for Doc.
Is that right?
Right, and they've got an exhibit. It's going to be like a hands-on exhibit, and people will be able to see the plane. Now they charge for tours and everything. I don't know what they're going to do for admission. Sometimes we have some free shows here, but usually they charge $20 or $25 to go in and look at it. And you can fly on it now. They've been flying it.
Oh, is that right? Oh, is that right? Really? How about that? Michael, you ready to go? I'll meet you in Cincinnati. How's that?
The name escapes. What's the name of the other one that flies?
Fifi.
Yeah, the Fifi.
Oh, yeah, that's the only 29s that could be restored.
But we went over, and I took my dad to see the Fifi, and I actually flew in a P-51 that day.
Oh
yeah.
We actually took off right in front of the Fifi, and then it landed right in front of us.
Okay.
Now you all have to slow down here. What's a PC, or what are these? Spell it for me.
The P-51 Mustang was the iconic fighter of World War II.
Okay.
Well,
all right.
This plane I flew in was a $3 million restoration. It was so much fun.
You would love flying in Doc then, Michael. You would love it.
We had a last week in Great Bend, and we had the both B-29s, Fifi and Doc. They flew.
Oh, Fifi was there too?
Yeah, they flew in Great Bend. It was really nice to see those two airplanes flying.
That's a small town for Great Bend. That's northwest of here, about 2 hours. And they were just this weekend, because the last time they were together was in Oshkosh, right? Last year. They flew together. I had to get after Mama because she said, in front of the news reporter, she goes, "My Doc is shinier and prettier." I said, "Mom, you can't say that. You offend people."
Yes, you can. You keep saying that.
So, how emotional was it to go back and the plane and work on the plane and restore it?
Okay, what was the first part of your question, Michael? Yeah.
I was just saying, how emotional was it to kind of reconnect with that plane again after all those years of being in that graveyard out there in California?
How emotional was it for you?
Oh, it was very emotional. I cried. I cried when I...
Well, that's when you saw it fly.
Yeah.
But to work on it.
Oh.
What?
You mean at the time?
Yeah.
I never thought it was going to be this great. I never did thought. I knew that the reason I went to work is because I wanted to help with the war effort, because to bring those boys back home, because, Japan had that Tokyo Rose, and I would get so mad at her because she would come on the radio and say a lot of things to break the morale of our boys. And then that's when one of the ladies, I think she was in Washington, and she's the one that started Rosie the Riveter, said, "Tokyo has Rosie, we're going to have Rosie the Riveter." And she's the one that's when we started having Rosie the Riveters.
They said Japan has Tokyo Rose. So we're going to have Rosie the Riveters in the United States.
See.
So what he's asking, when you went back to work on the project. How emotional, and tell him that experience with
at first I never thought we would sit at the plane. It was a mess.
You were afraid. She thought you would never see it fly.
I thought we would never get it done, but we did. Took us 17 years, but we got it done.
Oh my God, good for you. I'm so thrilled with this interview, aren't you, Michael? You know, one of the things that we're against all the time is that people want us to do a hurried job, and we have to because the women are dying. But sometimes when you do a hurried job, it just ends up so superficial. And what people are not understanding, and we have to say constantly to people, look, this is the beginning of long-term work, and we are going to show that the Rosie the Riveters made a difference in the world. They got the women in the workplace. They took care of injured veterans when they came back. They had children like me and Tish, and, basically they made a real influence. And this is not just, one event. And it takes a long time to do things right sometimes, really. How many years have you worked on it? Did you say 17 or 13?
To restore it, it took us 17 years to restore it, yes.
It flew. Was the first time it flew?
We started in 2000, and it just...
It flew not... Well,
in April, last April.
It'll
be a year.
A year, April? It was a year in April. So 2017. And then she's flown. She got to fly on it before we did. I got to fly on it twice because of her coming back from Oshkosh. If I wouldn't be with her, I wouldn't have done this, but she got to fly on it after it got approved by the FAA and everything. And then, later, this Oshkosh, I think, was the first time this summer that we got permission to fly with people, sell rides. And they were doing that. So
well, you all need to fly to Lexington, and then I'll go fly with you.
Okay. Well, I need to tell them they're going to St. Louis.
The 11th,
October 11th, 12th, and 13th. She just told me.
Yeah.
She's going to St. Louis, and I bet they're going to fly the plane there. I don't know. I can look and see where they go to different shows. They normally post that on the B-29 on that Doc's Friends. If you follow...
I'll look.
Yeah, look on that, and they show the planes. But I think that's the thing for Mom, that we were so surprised. Her first goal was just to see it, restored. Then her next goal was to be able to fly on it. And once that was done, and she was able to do that, I was kind of worried. I said, I think she's going to give up and not care about doing anything. Well, then they decided to do the hangar. And when they broke ground for that, she's kind of a spokesperson for them. She sells autograph posters. They've sold window wings from the.
They made it from the
planes, and with her picture and pictures of the planes and autographs. We've just met so many people, and I think I never had been to Oshkosh. She was there in 2014, and that's when they made these posters. And they would sell them for $25. Now they're $10?
$10.
And she thinks 25 was too much, but when I told her that was the money was going back to the B-29 restoration project, then she'll say okay. But
that's right.
We sold dinners, that she's made Mexican food dinners we raffled for here at school, and we honor her as Rosie the River. And on my Facebook page, I get hits. Just last Thursday, she was at an expo center, and she's known as somebody that's worked on worked on the B-29, and one of the few. So it's been kind of like you, Michael, what you find out with your dad and other veterans. It's amazing the stories that people come and tell us about their parents and their loved ones, that Mom brings hope to, or joy, because she was around the same time that their loved ones were. And I've just realized that in being with her just at the 2 Oshkosh shows.
Well, let me ask you this question. Okay. There's a lady here in my town, my hometown, and Ann and I met with her, and she made the Bombay doors for the B-29s.
Oh, she made the Bombay doors for the B-29.
And I asked her, I said, that's what I need. How does it feel knowing that you may have supplied the doors that actually dropped the atomic bomb?
Yeah.
And, that upset her to no end. She goes, I don't like thinking about the women and children that were killed. So, I mean, she's very shy and reserved, and doesn't like talking about it. What was your feeling when they dropped the atomic bomb?
What was your feeling when they dropped the bombs from the plane?
Well, I felt sorry for those people that had to die, but I was glad because it's the end of the war and brought back our boys that had been fighting over there. See, we lost a lot during the war too, so it was great in a way to see that war ended.
Did your brother, did he serve in the Pacific?
Yeah, my brother served in the USS Witch Destroyer, and he got wounded. He got the Purple Heart, and but he said he was sitting with the machine gun, and when his boss told him, move over there, and told him to move to another place, and then when he said that the Japs dropped the bomb right where he had been, if his boss hadn't told him to move, he would have gotten killed. But he did get injured. That's when he got wounded.
Wow.
Now, where was he at the time, Connie? Where was he? Where was he stationed?
Okinawa.
Okinawa. Okay. Actually, we have a woman that we're very close to whose husband was injured at Okinawa, lost a leg and his foot was mangled. And she's been really active with us for several years. So I think it was called Sugar Motel, but I'm not sure. But you're saying now he was a gunner? I'm confused. What was he doing? Your brother.
Was he a gunner on the USS Wichita? Yes.
Really?
And that was a destroyer, right?
The destroyer?
Yeah, it was a destroyer.
So,
I haven't read that much about it. She just met somebody, or where were you when you met somebody lately about the USS Wichita?
Well, they were in that.
At the Expo Center? On last Thursday when she was at this Expo Center.
Yeah,
there was a group there from the USS Wichita, and so
they had a big banner.
Okay.
And in fact, they told me to write something on the banner, which I did. That was last week, and they were getting signatures or messages from people that they had served in the USS Wichita.
Or relatives.
Relatives. But I was going to say that I was really surprised when I came to volunteer to help restore in 2000. I was the only one that showed up that worked on that.
Oh, really?
Is
that right?
One.
A lot of them are in nursing homes, she said, or deceased, or they're just not able to work like her, you know.
Yeah, I'm the only one that was there. All the volunteers we have now, of course, they were in the service, but there's the younger ones. They're in their 60s or 70s.
And they worked at Boeing or Spirit, and now they're retired. But she was actually one of the only ones that actually worked on the plane. That was to continue to work on it during this restoration project.
Fascinating. Tell me about discrimination, Connie. You talked about discrimination in high school. Was there discrimination on the workplace floor there at Boeing?
No.
Discrimination on the workforce?
No, I never did get any discrimination. Well, when I got there, the men, there were a few men that were working that they didn't go to war. I don't know whether they didn't pass the exam or what. Well, they didn't like us women. They used to not help us with the ladders to get them up or anything. But after we were there about 2 weeks, then they started liking us, and then they would help us. But at first they wouldn't. They didn't want to. Said, if you come here to do work, you better do it yourself. We're not going to help you. But then later on, as they got to know us, they helped us more.
So that was discrimination against women, but it wasn't particularly discrimination against that you being Spanish speaking or whatever, right?
Yeah. No. Well, I think they were a little jealous that we could do the work. Men could do
probably.
It was probably
more than once.
But she had in our hometown there was a lot of discrimination.
Oh yeah, in
Newton, in our hometown, but I don't think you didn't feel like you experienced it at Boeing.
No.
But she was involved in civil rights quite a bit in our hometown, and my father was too. I don't really remember because I was younger. It was when my brothers were, but in our hometown there was, like restaurants or like the swimming pool or the movie theater. Mom says that she couldn't go to, or they had to sit in the back 2 rows.
Yeah,
And swimming, you couldn't.
We couldn't go to the swimming pool. They wouldn't. And they, in fact, they didn't even. We couldn't even go eat in the restaurants. They didn't want us to eat there.
You could go swimming, but it was after, like on a Friday or Saturday, and then after the Mexicans and the African Americans would swim, they would drain the pool and then refill it, and then the whites would have it the rest of the week. Did you have it just one day?
Yeah, just one day.
And then after they did it, they would drain the pool and redo that. Things like that. In the hometown where I lived, I never really experienced that. And I went to the same high school. Sophomore year, I remember when I was elected head cheerleader, and one of my Mexican friends, classmates, told me the only reason I made head JV cheerleader was because they needed a Mexican. I kind of cried about it to my mom. And that's not true. That's the only thing that I remember being racist. But I think my mom has more stories of little things like that.
Like when...
Well, now, when you were working there in Boeing, did you take your lunch and did you eat in the lunchroom with everybody else, or how did that work?
Did you take your lunch?
Yeah, I took my lunch. Jerry and I would sit in a place and just eat out there by ourselves.
Just the two of you?
Yeah,
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we used to do that. Mm-hmm. But I was going to say that when my husband was going to Emporia Teachers under the GI Bill of Rights, he went to Emporia Teachers, and they had a trade.
It's Emporia State University now.
In Emporia. They had a trailer where they had the laundry, and I went to do my laundry, and one of the ladies that lived there in the trailers with us, she said to me, "Are you a war bride?" I said, "No." I said, I was born in Peabody, Kansas. And she said, "Well, you have an accent." And I said, "Yes, because I'm a Mexican American and I love my Spanish. I think that's why I have an accent." And she said, "Oh, well, the next day, my next door neighbor, Margie Evans was her name. She was a real good friend of mine. She came over and told me, said, 'Hey, Connie, there's a petition that Mrs. Lingo started to throw you out of here because she said they don't want no Mexicans.' I didn't sign it," she said, "but they had a lot of names there." Well, a week went by and nothing happened. I told Margie, "What happened with that petition? We're still here." She said, "I'll have to find out." So she went. Well, what happened was that they took the petition to the dean of the Emporia Teachers College, and the dean told him, "I'll throw the Palacios out, but I'm going to throw all your GIs because Mr. Palacio is a GI, and he owns that because he was in the service like your husbands were. So if I throw them, all of you are going out." So they stopped the petition.
Isn't this incredible? I'm telling you, Michael. So you're saying that they took it to the dean of the college and to throw you out.
Yeah.
But basically what happened was he said, because your husband was on the GI Bill, if I throw him out, we're going to throw out all the GIs.
Yeah.
Right? No matter what their heritage or whatever. Oh, my goodness.
And even the Catholic Church there, she said the Mexicans had to sit in the back 2 rows. So one time did you have my brother, Joe, then?
Yeah, Joe was a baby.
And the usher said, you sit up front. They were going to let Mom sit up front, and my dad had to sit in the back. And my dad wasn't real dark complected either, but darker than my mom. She had freckles and reddish hair. And my mom said, well, I'm Mexican too. So then they made her come back and sit in the back 2 rows too. So, I mean, in the church even, that's just the way things were back then. But
yeah.
She shares those stories a little bit that we've learned about some of the things that she went through. But
yeah.
She was always a fighter and believed in what was right, and she kind of stands up that way now a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's something about this whole story for me, and I'm sure I'm speaking for Michael, that, the American spirit is really the human spirit. And what we talk about in America as the American spirit is really the freedom to be able to do better. And one of the things we hope for in this project is that people understand that, we fought for freedom, but we need to know what to do with it. And we need to know that we are not only individuals, but that we're a group. And I think that's one of the things I'm hearing from her is that just by nature she stood up for her group, not just for herself, but for basically a human thing, It's very important. Tell me this, Connie, do you have a very specific memory of one thing or maybe 1 or 2 things that happened on the workplace floor? Any interesting thing that really stands out in your mind more vividly than anything else?
Do you have 1 or 2 special memories of the times that you worked on the floor at Boeing when you were working on the B-29?
Well, I'm trying to think. Well, I think that the one I remember the most was working with Jerry with her, because a lot of people really resented it because she was black, and they didn't want to treat her like they did me. And I had several say, well, why do you work with her? I said, well, she's a good bucker, and I want to work with her. And that's one of the things that I remember.
Were there any accidents or any kinds of unusual things that happened on the floor? Did you ever witness an accident, or even people didn't fight? Did people always do what they were supposed to do, or did they sometimes argue or fight?
We never had any big fights, but they just used to tell me when I was, why do you work with her like that? And so I said, well, I don't work with her. She's okay. And they kind of made her feel like she wasn't wanted. And it hurt her feelings, but I always stayed close to her. But after they knew how good of a bucker she was, they wanted her. But she wouldn't go with nobody. She stayed with me till the end of the war.
They wouldn't separate after that. She's asked about a special event. There's one story that you've told me that. Or memory.
When we made the 1,000.
Okay, good.
When we finished the 1,000 plane, we all put $1 on the plane. And it was a big celebration that I do remember.
You all taped $1 to the plane?
Yeah, all the employees when we put $1 on the plane.
Every employee that plane that day.
I think I have a picture of that.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. let me tell you, maybe it's not accurate, but we actually had an event at the Netherlands Embassy to celebrate the end of the war, but mostly it was really to acknowledge the Rosies, and it was on May 6th, I think. I'd have to think about it, but anyway, it was right at Victory Europe Day in 2015 in Washington at the Embassy of the Netherlands. And one of our allies went to Boeing and got a picture of the 1,000th airplane, and I'm pretty sure I have a picture of that.
Oh,
yeah,
I remember her sharing that.
Yeah, that was a big day for us.
Yeah. I bet maybe you're even in that picture, because many of the women who worked on the plane were right there in the picture.
Yeah.
Well, that'd be neat.
Can I read y'all something real quick?
Yeah.
Go ahead. You're all right. Go ahead.
Well, this is on the Wichita and the invasion of Okinawa. It says, late on April the 6th, a Japanese Zero attempted to attack the Wichita. The fighter came down through a break in the clouds on Wichita's port side. The ship's anti-aircraft gunners immediately opened fire. A burst from one of the 20-millimeter guns shot away the Zero's tail. The plane veered away out of control and dropped its 500-pound bomb, which fell approximately 50 feet from the ship. The Zero's wing clipped the deck before the plane crashed into the sea. 11 men were wounded in the attack, though the ship remained undamaged. The following day, the Wichita